You're listening to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, episode number 51. Welcome to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, a show anchored in reality to help you create a balanced life where you enjoy both your work and your life, because you don't have to choose. I am your host, Cecile Ferry, a corporate executive turned coach and working mom. This is your place for insights, advice, and tools to optimize your career direction, balance, and confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the first episode for 2022. And let me wish you a beautiful, calm, loving, and joyful new year. I am sitting at home. I will confess this is the only work that I'm doing at the moment, and it is so nice to really live at that slower pace of life where there are less people around, there is less to do. I am really soaking it up, and I hope that you have been able to enjoy some break or that you're currently still enjoying it. And thank you for tuning in today. So for this first episode, and it's quite a tradition for me, I want to talk about the lessons from 2021. I love doing this, and maybe you've heard me saying that before. The end of the year is my favorite time because we get to stop and look back and reflect, and I love doing that. I think that's something my mind absolutely geeks out on. And I've also created a 2021-2022 yearly planner. So if you haven't received it because you're not on my mailing list right now, you can go on my website. I will put the link in the show notes. It's at careercatchup.com/planner, and you can go and download it for free. It's a beautiful PDF that has some journaling prompts and some questions for you to sit down and to think about 2021 and learn all the lessons and really take stock of it. And I find that exercise so powerful because we tend to forget, right, what really happened and everything that we have achieved, and also everything that we're carrying into next year. And then the second section is about next year. So it's to help you plan your goals. It's to help you set your intentions and really consider what sort of a year you would like to have, what will make it a year well lived on your own terms. So if you haven't got it, if you haven't done that exercise, I highly recommend you go and download it at careercatchup.com/planner and let me know how it goes for you. So it's something that I did last week for myself. And here I want to talk about a couple of lessons will be personal from me, but today I'm talking more about the collective lessons that I'm seeing through all my work, through all my inner circles and networks and observations, working with my clients, everything that I read. I really like to make sense of those things because my mind is really great at connecting dots. And I just love taking all those facts after 1 year and weaving them into a kind of a story, a fabric, a framework that makes sense. So 2021 was another huge year for all of us and was such a ride, right? I'm pretty sure you would agree with me on that. I know so many of us a year ago were thinking 2020 was huge and was a shock to the system for us, that we all hope for a year that was going to be calmer, that was going to be easier, and for some of us that would bring us back down to what we call normal. And none of that happened, right? 2021 was another year of change, another layer, and it pushed us even further. And clearly, we were meant to have that because that's what happened. And the main thing is that we all made it through, and what is really important is to reflect on the lessons and to bank all of those lessons for ourselves, because I firmly believe this level of change is not going to happen for years on end, and we are going through a specific process, which I will outline in lesson number 5 today. And to me, it all makes sense. So I want to talk you through this process that we are all in so that you feel some comfort and you know what to expect in 2022. So let's get into it now. I have for you 5 lessons from 2021. So lesson number 1 And I'm starting with the most primitive one. I really found that this year, more than any other year, has shown us that we as human beings are wired for survival. We know basically that as a species that we are, but I found that this year in particular tested us so much, and it tested me so much that I got to really feel that I got to the outskirts of my survival at time, and that I got to see that I made it through. I'm not going to get back through all the painful things that happened, right? I'm sure you have those facts still in mind. But collectively, we have all experienced a lot more challenges again, lots of efforts, lots of waiting time, lots of sometimes lockdown, separation, cancellations, disappointment, losses, and so on and so forth. Even some of us I know have had COVID within their household in the midst of Christmas. So that went on until the very last week of the year. But the thing is, we all made it. And I'll talk about the mental cost, but I think the lesson here is we tend to forget how strong we are because we are usually not tested to that level. And this year was even more than 2020. But the fact is, when we get put to the test, we survive and we adapt and we adjust and we are so goddamn resilient that we made it through. And not only we just kind of barely made it through, we grew. Like we've all really done like a leap in terms of our personal growth and strength throughout those very tough times. So I think we forget how strong we are and we get afraid that we are not going to bear things. I think this is the biggest lesson in courage and in self-integrity is knowing and trusting that we will be okay, that we will always see it to the other side. Our tolerance level is very high as human beings, even if it doesn't feel like it or whether we don't actually like it. It is a fact. And, you know, how often have we thought in our lives, if this happened, I couldn't handle it, or right now this is killing me, and we use all those expressions. And it's not. Like, I don't think anything is going to really kill us until it's the time of our death, right? But this is just our life path. That's my belief. But for the rest, we are going to push through. We're going to make it through. Then the question becomes, how do we want to feel throughout the journey? What mindset do we want to adopt as we get into it? Because I just really feel there's always a force that pushes us through, that ensures our survival. So ask yourself, when you look back on 2021, were there times where you felt like pushed to the edge of your survival? And, you know, and see for yourself what tactics, what happened, and really realize that you made it through. And now know that whatever comes your way in the future, if you feel like this, like you're not going to make it, that it's just going to be so threatening, so challenging for you, so heartbreaking maybe, know that you are wired. It's like you don't have a choice. You will get through it. So hopefully that gives you insight that in the future, whatever comes your way, you'll be wired to make it through and you will survive. Lesson number 2 is a big one for me personally, and it will probably apply to most of you, is to stop fighting uncertainty. So I love certainty, and because there isn't much of it around, I tend to go on control mode, controlling the uncertainty with myself, with whatever action I can take. And this year has taught me how this flat out does not work. How we cannot win the fight against uncertainty. Granted, this was taught to us with very drastic circumstances of a pandemic and the virus evolving and things changing on us all the time. So it's a pretty hard lesson, but I personally got it. Because as human beings, our reaction is to trying to find ways to be sure, to know the outcome, and because we need it to be a certain way in order to feel okay. When we try to find all those ways, we are hoping to feel less anxious, to release some of that anxiety that we have. But what I have noticed is we actually get more anxious in the process. Have you noticed? When you're trying to control uncertainty in order to feel more at peace, you actually raise your own anxiety level because you're trying to do something that's not possible. And then you keep wondering if what you're doing is working. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle and it compounds the anxiety. So the lesson that I really got this year, seeing that I was trying to control and then I just let go, is that we needed to accept that uncertainty is a huge part of our lives. And we needed to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty. And I'm not saying we need to embrace it and it's going to feel great. It's not. But we need to just accept that there's this part, this chunk in our lives that we cannot control. And that feels bad. And it's not what we want, but that's how it is. And then the question becomes, well, what else can we control? Or how do we want to behave about this thing we're trying to control? And one tip that I typically use that I will share with you when I'm faced with uncertainty now is I just tell myself, maybe this will, maybe this won't. Maybe. There's 50% chance statistically for most things. And I just keep telling myself that. So I am not taking my mind to, how can I make this happen? And I need this and I want this, because then I suffer. If we try to get rid of uncertainty or to bring it down to like a level where it's about zero by controlling, we only harm ourselves in the process. So instead, we need to surrender to the fact that a major part of our life is uncertain. And to me, that's a huge lesson from the pandemic. I think before we were more under the impression that when we decided to do certain things in our life, it would just happen. And now this is what the pandemic has taught us. It doesn't mandatorily happen. And all the way to now, we don't know if we can plan certain things. So we need to accept. But we can be absolutely hopeful and optimistic. These are really good vibrations to put out, but not putting all our eggs into that basket with that needy state, the needing something to happen in order for us to be feeling good, feeling okay. You know, like when we're clinging onto things and we're feeling that tension because we need things to turn out a certain way, or we really obsess about a certain goal or a certain thing that we want to happen in our years. I have really learned that we control only some of our life and not that much, to be honest. So we control our behavior, we control our intentions, and then we have to be open and we have to live with knowing there is risk that things may not turn out. But as long as we do our best and that we remain optimistic and we have realistic expectations, then that's the best we can do as human beings. But we gotta let go of that clinging onto the steering wheel and trying to drive uncertainty to the ground. That was my big lesson. So for 2022, try to apply this and see the things that you are uncertain about, that you already would like to happen, but ask yourself, do I have control over this or not? And then apply the maybe rule. And just plan accordingly, but be open. Keep some space for things to unfold differently, maybe if they will, and have that kind of humility, but also that hope, that optimism. You can feel whichever way you want to feel, but don't go all the way to no, nothing is going to happen and being terribly negative. Like I see some people who go all the way, don't make plans. But likewise, Let go of trying to control things that are so uncertain you cannot control them. Lesson number 3 is one that I really got to see in my personal life, and I will share openly here the examples. But I think it applies to so many of us, and not just related to the pandemic, but I really saw it for me this year. It's that when things don't go your way, it is in your highest good. And typically you only see that in retrospect. So that's what happened to me. So in relation to my business mainly, the end of the year was very busy with my clients. And it was great. I had lots of new people signing up and we did a lot of work together. It was really fantastic. So I went back to my records where I tracked all my client activity, and I realized something really interesting. Pretty much all the client activity and the client leads that I got in the first half of the year didn't go anywhere. So there were clients that I didn't want to take on. It didn't work out. They never ended up signing up. Like, there was a lot of things that didn't turn out concretely. And then fast forward to the second half, it was completely the opposite. Like, over 90% of all the clients that came my way turned into clients, and I was extremely busy. So it was a bit like there was famine in the beginning, not much happening, versus all the effort and the work that I did didn't turn into the same results, and second half completely different result, like feast. But I know now, after the year that I've had, that this actually was the best for me, because I had a lot of other things on the personal front to handle. I had a lot of things to get used to. I had to settle into my new home, into my new life. I had a lot of things going on with my daughter who was adjusting to our change of lifestyle. I had so much to process internally for myself. And also I was exhausted from last year, which was massive. After the pandemic and a massive house move and so much on the emotional front to handle as well, it was huge. And what I thought was in my highest good, what I wanted to do was do a ton of client work and really launch myself into my business and do a lot this year. And clearly things haven't turned out that way. And it was like the tap was turned off somewhere, unbeknownst to me. And the tap just got turned back on later in the year after the long lockdowns that we've had. And I also see that as a lesson that, in a way, having those lockdowns allowed me to be home, to do what I could, and to process so much that was happening. Because if life had been fully open, I may have been traveling and seeing lots of people. That would have completely taken the focus off what was happening for me personally. So it's like the tap was turned off with work in the first couple of months. Then I was kind of stuck at home and forced to deal with a lot of things there. And then when things reopened and I got out, then life really started to rise and to take off for me, especially on the work front. And so now I look back and I'm like, things worked out perfectly. Not what I thought was good for me, but what was in my highest good. Yeah, so now I know that had I had all this work in the first half of the year, I could not have handled it. It just was not right for me. And I was much stronger and a much better place to help clients in the second half of the year. So see in your life, it may be in a different part of your life than in your work, but see if in 2021, you've been trying to do things, you've been wanting things, sometimes really badly, especially if it's really badly, it's a really good indication if they haven't happened, that something else was going on, that it wasn't in your highest good, and that you had no idea about that, but just see where things haven't turned out the way that you want. And I guarantee you, there's a good reason. And now's the right time to find that reason and to learn from it. Lesson number 4 is to look after your mental well-being. So my view is that 2021 shone the light on the power of our minds and how when our minds are not looked after, when they're not in a good place, they can really limit us, hinder us, and hold us back and prevent us from having a peaceful, a happy, and fulfilling life. And also it impacts so many people around us. So mental health and mental well-being is not something that was spoken about. It's not something that was discussed about 5 years ago. It wasn't discussed to the level that it is now, and it has not become mainstream. But the last 2 years, 2020, 2021, I see have escalated this and brought it to the forefront of general awareness and mainstream awareness. And in 2021, I have seen, me included, people really struggling to cope mentally, having breakdowns, lashing out at their kids, their own kids having meltdowns. I've seen depression, obsessive behaviors, massive anxiety, insecurity, moodiness, the rise of negative thoughts, and I could keep going. And as my yoga teacher said at Christmas, our nervous systems have been hammered. And this is what has happened. It's so true. We've had 2 years of pandemic when there was already some weight on our nervous system before. Like we had some mental tension, some stress, maybe other issues like health, money. We had already things, and then we've added a lot of anxiety and stress coming from the pandemic. And honestly, it has taken its toll, and I have seen it culminate in 2021. And sadly, I saw more people and more clients with weaker mental health towards the end of the year. In my business, even specifically, I have more than ever identified some clients where they just were not really in the right place for life coaching or career coaching because they needed psychological support, because anxiety or mental health issues had been taken their toll so much that they needed the support of a therapist rather than a coach. That happens at times, but the extent to which I observed that in 2021, in the second half of it, is significantly higher than all the past few years. It's just a fair realization when we're taking stock that most of us have really had a very strong impact to our mental health with what happened. It is normal with what we've been dealing with and for so long. And you might be thinking, maybe not, that doesn't apply to me. And it's hard to spot when it's you, especially when it's been ongoing, because you adapt to kind of your new normal. But you can definitely ask someone who is external to you, who knows you really well, or you can ask a qualified professional because they will definitely assess you. But typically, as a starting point, you can see whether you're really struggling with motivation or with low tolerance levels on an ongoing basis for days on end. That is usually an indication that your mental health is just not as strong as it can be. And there's no shame about that. It's like if you've been walking for kilometers on end or done a marathon, of course your physical health is not going to be great and you're going to need to rest. Same deal here. And that is why I recommend for all of us to dedicate some time, at least, I would say at least a month, maybe up to 3, at the beginning of 2022, to let our nervous system and our minds rest, to let it recover, to let it recharge properly. Because we all need to acknowledge how heavy it's been on us mentally to cope. And it's like, after a marathon, you rest up. You need to do the same mentally. So that means, for instance, less exposure to stressful things, For instance, work could be. So that's why, you got to switch off. You got to have a break. And you got to use up your leave. Don't hold on to it for when you can travel overseas. You also got to limit your exposure to some people that may stress you out, family members or other type of people. You're also going to limit your exposure to social media, which really keeps your nervous system on high alert. You need to up your self-care, whatever it is. Whether, you're going to do more exercise, or you're going to swim, you're going to nap, you're going to go and do yoga, you're going to get a massage. Like, this is the time. It's not indulgent. This is absolutely necessary to at least bring your nervous system back into a neutral place. Even better if you can reach all the point where you're feeling calm, you're feeling positive, you're feeling peaceful. And how will you know that you're there? It's when things happen, external things, and you don't get thrown by them. Like, you don't become irritable, you don't become frustrated easily, you have really good tolerance, or, you wake up feeling genuinely good in the morning, then, your nervous system is in a good place. But otherwise, if you start firing really quickly, if you find yourself being quite reactive, you need to give your nervous system a break. And I feel like this is just like a very general needed cleanse that we all need to do, because our poor mind, yes, we're wired for survival and we have survived, and that is the cost. We're not designed to handle that level of stress for so long. So it's like, if you've got really a headache, if you've got any kind of illness, you will get cured, you will get a treatment. You need to really look after your mental health and your mind and rest it up, because then you'll be in a much better place to deal with 2022. And my final lesson is how I see 2021 in relation to 2020 and the process that we are in and what's going to come forward. I believe now more than ever is the perfect time to implement change in your life. So let me bring it back a minute. And you can go back and listen to episode number 18, which was my lesson from 2020. In there, I talk about how 2020 was the year for awareness. So it was kind of like the first shock. That's how I see it. We got to realize pretty harshly things that we thought were acquired, that were no longer acquired, or things that were problematic in our life that we were putting up with. And it was like the carpet was pulled under us and whoa, didn't it hit us in the face, right? So I felt like 2020 was like the cold shower. We were pushed and forced into awareness of parts of our life that were not working and that needed to change, right? Then 2021 is part 2. And I see this year as being the year where we took action, where we started to face what we saw in 2020 and we started to process it. We started looking for reasons. We started getting help, getting support, like taking steps towards change. And I now see 2022 to be part 3, where we are implementing that change. And we are going to reap the benefits, and that is when the real transformation will be complete. That is my opinion. This is how I see it, and it fits my situation, and it fits so many of my clients and my friends and family. So if you haven't started on the change journey, I'm going to be really serious for a minute, but this is tough, caring love. I really urge you to take action now. Like now, you're listening to this podcast, you do something this week. You do not wait February. You really need to tackle things and you need to take it seriously because there's still time to get on that change process. Because otherwise, your current worries and anxiety will only spiral down. And my guess is that if you haven't changed anything in the last few years, right now, you're feeling worse than a year ago. And if you don't do it, it will be same deal. And that will not be sustainable. So ask yourself, what needs to change? Be honest, tell yourself the truth. Face it, and maybe ask yourself, what is the thing that I don't want to change, that I feel highly uncomfortable to change, that I resist because I am afraid? And that's fine. Like, change is difficult. And as painful and as difficult as this may seem to you, I guarantee you it will not be as bad as what you fear. Trust me. But if you leave it, you will feel this pain and discomfort again and again and again. Put it this way, I don't think we can avoid change. This is the story that we're in. And I believe there are energies which are carrying us, that are kind of massaging us and pushing us towards change. And we can all see it, we can all feel it. Some of us are trying to ignore it, put it back on the carpet, or ignore it. You cannot do this for another year, is my view. And if you have already started the change process, you've looked maybe at your career, you've changed something in your relationship, you changed something at home, like you've moved, like there's so many things you could have really started to implement in 2021. I believe if you have followed part 1 and 2, you are in for a great year in 2022. Maybe some of you haven't yet got to the destination, but that's okay. It will happen. That's the last step of the transformation. I really believe you will get some really positive breaks and some positive reinforcement. You really start to see the results of your action in 2021. So well done if you are on that change journey. And I'm here to assist you whether you haven't yet taken action or you're starting to take action and you want guidance to make it happen next year. Whether it's life coaching or career coaching, you can reach out to me at careercatchup.com. I'll put also the links in the show note for you. This is the year, my friends. And if you're already with me, you would have seen already like premises of change in 2021. And trust me, 2022 is going to bring it home. That's it, my beautiful friend. That's a wrap for 2021. So just to recap the lessons from this year, where 1, we are wired for survival and we can take on much more than what we think. Number 2, we have to stop fighting uncertainty and accept and live around that. Number 3, when things don't go our way, it is because there's a really good reason that we better uncover, and it is in our best interest. Number 4, look after your mental well-being and give your nervous system a really good rest. And number 5, now is the time for change, for transformation, and for bringing home whatever you started in 2021. And just don't let that pass. Now is really the time to focus on the energies that we have this year. And I think this year is going to be easier for those of us that have started to address those issues in our life, that have started to correct the things that were not working, and basically they haven't ignored what they could see wasn't working. I know it's really hard. It takes a lot of courage. It is personally so challenging because we have to face our own shadows, we have to work on ourselves, and it is so much easier to just sit in front of Netflix with a packet of chips, right? And don't we all want to do that? But when your quality of life changes, nothing compares to it. So it is absolutely worth it. And I really believe we are all living interesting times that allow us to shift things in our personal life or professional life that need changing. So with all of this in mind, that is what I wish for you in 2022. It's a year where you rise to yourself, where you take your own courage and you step up and you do what you are called to do. And you really stay in integrity with yourself. You know, like you don't deny yourself the truth that you may have been maybe putting to the side justifying or putting other people first. Like, this is the year to really be you with your goals, your desire, and challenge yourself and see for yourself what you're capable of. As usual, I am massively in your corner and I'm here for you. So don't hesitate to reach out so I can support you in making this year a fantastic one for you. Take care, everybody, and I'll speak with you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to find out more information, you can visit my website at careercatchup.com. There you will find blog articles, free resources, a self-study course for your career direction, and ways to work with me. It's at careercatchup.com. I hope to continue to connect with you and support you. Talk to you soon.